Glad to hear it went so well.
It was very well done. Everyone seemed pleased. Their feedback was good verbally, so it was a good operation. Just hope we keep continuing it and getting more people there.
I'm going today at 4, so that's good information. Thank you.
Yes, yes. The hardest part is parking and getting in and going through the maze of hallways, but they direct you pretty well. But once you're in there, it's unbelievable how organized they are. And they even gave us an appointment for the next time, so we know exactly when we're going back.
If you're going in today, make sure you park on the Carnegie side. That's where the entrances are.
Yes.
Yeah, someone just came in and said they released a bunch of appointments for tomorrow right now online. So if anybody's looking, go on now.
Do we have Mike Chambers?
Yeah, here.
Oh, good morning, Mike.
Sorry,
I think we're ready to begin whenever you're ready.
Great. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Monday, March 22nd, Board of Control meeting. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Good morning. Calling the roll for the March 22nd Board of Control meeting. Calling the roll for the March 22nd Board of Control meeting. It is 11:01. Dale Miller.
Here.
Nan Baker.
Here.
Nan Baker.
Here. I'm sorry, am I muted? No?
No, we can hear you.
Okay.
I can hear you at least.
Okay, I think we have an issue here. If everybody can just hold for a moment, I'm going to have to get IT down here again.
Can you hear me?
Are you hearing like me repeating?
I'm not hearing you repeat, I'm hearing pauses. I guess you're pausing because you hear repeat. I'm not hearing repeat.
Everything I say is coming back like a second time.
Now, are you called in, Anna?
No.
Okay. Only hearing one side.
Okay, I mean, as long as you're hearing correctly,
Oh, yeah,
I'll just continue.
okay.
You did repeat yourself. We heard you called Councilwoman
I'm sorry,
Baker
Nicole?
twice. You were repeating because you called Councilwoman Baker twice.
Okay. Because I'm hearing everything I'm saying back again.
That was the only time, though, you've not been repeating since then.
Okay, I'm hearing, like what you just said, Nicole, I'm hearing it a second time, so.
You don't have a phone on, a dial in?
No, I don't, no.
Okay.
Sure. Do you have YouTube up in the background? That might be it. If you have the Zoom and the YouTube up.
I do not. Okay, I can just block it out. I'll just keep going.
Where were we? Did we call the roll after Nan Baker, our Councilwoman Baker?
Yes, and I'm here.
Okay, Trevor Mackler serving as an alternate for Pernell Jones.
I'm here, sure.
Mike Chambers serving as an alternate for Ermin Budish.
Here.
Lee Tucker serving as an alternate for the fiscal officer.
Here.
Nicole English serving as an alternate for Mike Dever.
Here.
Lenora Lockett.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Reviewing the minutes of March 15th, I'm going to make a motion to approve those minutes. Do I have a second?
Second, Miller.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved. Moving on to public comment. Is there any public comment? Feel free to speak at this time. Okay, there is no public comment. Moving on to contracts and award.
First item, BC 2021-120, Department of Public Works submitting an amendment to an agreement with the City of Berea for maintenance and repair of storm sewers and sanitary sewers located in County Sewer District Number 8 for the period June 1st, 2017 through March 31st, 2021, to extend the time period to March 31st, 2022, and for additional revenue in the amount not to exceed $450,000.
Nicole English with Public Works. This is our annual renewal of the City of Berea sanitary agreement. They like to do it annually so they can appropriate their funds and decide how much they want to devote to this work. So it's $450,000 over the next year. And this is where they will call us to do work. When we do it, we then bill them back for the charges.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. Are there any questions from the board on this item? Hearing none, then I will make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second, Mike Charver.
Seconded by Mr. McAleer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2021-121, Department of Development submitting an RFP exemption on requisition 2415, which will result in a payment to Complete Business Solutions in the amount not to exceed $2,610 for call center services to support Cuyahoga County's Small Business Resource Center for businesses impacted by COVID-19 for the period April 20th, 2020 through May 29th, 2020, and recommending the payment in connection with said RFP exemption.
So good morning, Paul Herdig here with the Department of Development. First, I want to apologize. Apparently, the answers I sent over to this originally got lost in cyberspace, so I just had to resend them this morning. I apologize. There was a series of questions about this item, partly because it looks pretty late. So just a quick recap. We stood up a live call center last spring that was active for 3 months so that business owners could get a warm answer, a live answer, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, with questions they had about getting resources for surviving COVID. We used an outside vendor, that's Complete Business Solutions, and because of the speed we were moving at, we kind of had a number of ways we did procurement. We patched together some money that was passed through a contract with ECDI, as well as a couple of direct purchases for the total amount for the 3 months. So what you're seeing today is the last bit of that funding that was authorized by our director, by Ted, and it's in the form of an invoice because there was a slight discrepancy between the amount Ted felt was fair to pay them and the total amount we could pass through these different other funding mechanisms. So that really is the last bit of funding for the 3-month period when they were doing this work. It ended May 29th. It did not continue. Since that time, we've had actually a development staff employee answering that phone. The calls have died off quite a bit since the second round of grants ended. And in terms of the timing, this was approved by the chief, by Ted Carter, in advance, but we didn't get the workers' comp certificate from the vendor until very late. It took them all the way till February, and we simply could not put it into the Lawson system without that workers' comp certificate. So normally something up to $5,000 wouldn't even come to the board, but that's the reason why. We had to go ahead and order the services, and then it took us that time to get the workers' comp certificate after. And yes, we are looking at this to see if we can transfer it over to the CARES funding.
Hey, thank you, Paul. Are there any questions from the board on this item?
Yes, I have one. And my question is, how much was the total amount that we paid for the call center operation?
The total amount for the call center, Councilman, I don't have the exact figure, which I will get to, but it's in the order of $50,000 for the 3-month engagement.
And was the money other than the 2,600 here charged to the CARES Act, or has none of it been charged to the CARES Act so far?
Councilman, it is eligible for the CARES Act, and we are actually still processing the payment to ECDI. And again, as we're doing with this one, we will transfer that to the CARES Act, assuming that CARES Act funds are still available.
So I'm not clear on how you answered my question. The remaining money, other than the $2,600 here, has that been charged to the CARES Act, or is that still pending as well?
Thanks, and I'm sorry for the confusion. There were, I think, 4 separate pieces of this funding. 2 of those, which were direct payments, have been charged to CARES Act already. The third, which is a payment we still need to make to ECDI, will be charged to the CARES Act once we make it. And this one as well, we're going to transfer to the CARES Act. So at the end of the day, all will be charged to CARES Act.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Hearing none, then I'll make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second, this is Dale.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2021-122, Department of Development, submitting an RFP exemption on requisition 5143, which will result in a payment to Arizona Alliance in the amount not to exceed $120,000 for operational support for the period April 1st, 2021 through December 31st, 2021, and recommending a payment in connection with said RFP exemption.
Thank you. Paul Hertig with the Department of Development. This is our annual operating support to the Arizona Alliance. Last year, the amount had to be reduced by 15% due to the COVID impact on the budget. This is the full planned amount. We have received a series of written reports from the Arizona Alliance. We get them every year. So we've received their report for the year 2020, as well as their planned budget and operating plan for the year 2021. They've been reviewed by the Department of Development, and we believe this is an appropriate use of the county's general fund allocation through the Department of Development. This is a strong collaborative effort among the 6 communities surrounding the Arizona to really leverage the presence of the airport and NASA for economic development. So we recommend this for approval.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Are there any questions from the board on this item?
This is Dale, and not a question. I would like to thank the administration for your support of the Aerozone and the concept behind it. The Aerozone Alliance operates in my district and also Councilwoman Baker's district and Councilman Gallagher's district. It includes communities from 3 county council districts.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, then I will make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2021-123, Department of Development, submitting an RFP exemption on requisition 5370, which will result in a payment to the Greater Cleveland Sports Commission in the amount of $220,000 for operational support for the period April 1st, 2021 through December 31st, 2021, and recommending a payment in connection with said RFP exemption.
Thank you. Paul Hertig again for the Department of Development. This is Cuyahoga County's annual operating support to the Sports Commission. Again, this is the full planned amount. It's not reduced as it was last year. Certainly, the work of the Sports Commission has been instrumental in leveraging various activities and events. NFL Draft is coming up next for promotion and tourism travel, and the economic impact on our region is certainly considerable. So we recommend approval of this operating support.
Thank you, Paul. Are there any questions from the board on this item?
Just one, Nan Baker.
Sure.
I'm just curious why this starts in April and not January for a full 12 months instead of 9 months.
Thank you. Councilwoman, it's a little bit tricky as we don't like to bring forward any retroactive approvals to the board. This is full year support. The budget of the Sports Commission is such that they have other sources of revenue such that only having this available to them from April through December will not cause them any difficulty with their operation.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Hearing none, then I'll make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. McAleer. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
Thank you.
Next item, BC 2021-124, Department of Information Technology, submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in an award recommendation to Timothy M. Wahop in the amount not to exceed $90,000 for Enterprise Resource Planning System Support Services for the period March 22nd, 2021 through September 21st, 2021, and recommending the award in connection with said RFP exemption.
Good morning, Janelle Green on behalf of the Department of IT. This is a request to enter into a contract with Tim Wahop. He will provide enterprise resource planning system assistance to our departments on the back end. Tim has worked with us before directly through Infor and has since moved to an independent status. He is certified in almost all of the back-end systems for Infor and would provide a wealth of knowledge in order to support our systems and also to support our ERP team as we transition moving forward. I do have Jack Ryan on the line if there are other more technical questions in regards to Tim's potential service with the county.
Okay, thank you, Janelle. Are there any questions from the board on this item?
I have a question, Nan Baker.
Sure.
To Mr. Ryan. So I understand the ERP stabilization and the ERP implementation. And when we're talking about stabilization, we're talking about trying to keep the current production in place and not be pulling resources from them in order to get our payroll tested and eventually launched. I guess I'm just curious as to why Mr. Wahop is not being used more for that service of payroll so that we can relieve the other departments from being pulled. Why is it that the stabilization is needed in other departments and not just trying to get payroll launched and relieve, what it is that's causing us to not launch payroll? I'm trying to phrase that the best I can, but maybe Mr. Ryan, you understand what I'm saying.
I do, and thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. No, Tim Wahop obviously has the ability to work across multiple things. The urgent priorities that we have with procurement right now would be one of the things that Tim Wahop would address first. I would add this, that as we get further down line and get some of these urgent issues with procurement, specifically procurement resolved, and that Tim can assist with, if we have an opportunity to bring him back to work on some payroll items, we can allocate him that way and change the allocation. But right now, the urgent priorities that we have with stabilization are what we need to engage him on. That said, I believe I tried to answer this in some of the pre-questions that were presented as well. We do have additional resources that we're adding to the payroll team as quickly as we can on the technical side to try to work on some of the payroll conversion items, which are the urgent technical things that we're needing to get done to continue to move payroll. And that's how we're allocating the resources, and that's why at this point in time. But we do have the option of taking Tim and allocating some of his time and some of the charges back into the implementation project once we alleviate some of the urgent concerns in production.
If I may follow then, given that these modules have been launched and they've had the support in the go live to make sure that they're launched and launched correctly in a period of time, why is it that we're having so much continued difficulty? Why is procurement singled out as being a issue that we need to go back into those productions and bring on consultants to get us through that process, which sounds like nothing to do with payroll or the pulling of resources from payroll workers to help. Sounds like this is just an issue that we're trying to overcome.
Well, we have several, to frame it properly, we have several, a list of outstanding production issues that has been building since the launch of not only procurement, but there are also fiscal related issues that we have had that need to be addressed, that are urgent. And the concern here is that if we don't resolve those and resolve them as a high priority, that we don't want to go into. We'll continue to work on payroll, but we don't want to go into the payroll launch actually until we make sure that we have the rest of the platform and the rest of the modules also stable, so that we're not fighting on two fronts as we go into the launch. So the concept here is first, stabilize the ERP. While we do that, add to the payroll team to make sure that it can continue to work. And then we have a stable platform to launch from when we do payroll. And we've not pulled resources off the payroll team to do the stabilization. We've moved them, but we've replaced them with people that'll be there full time throughout the process. So that's the staffing concept that we're working on.
If I may, Chair.
Sure.
So the other 3 consultants that we hired that were primarily production support, which I would think would be addressing procurement and fiscal related issues. How many, are they also involved in working with Mr. Walhop in stabilizing those procurement and fiscal related issues? Do we need 4 people to do that?
All of those folks would be involved in one form or another in those in doing those, taking care of those issues. That's correct.
If you don't mind, if I may continue. So
Please.
once we're past this procurement backlog that it sounds like we have and some fiscal related issues, that's a 6-month, you think, need? And do you see us then ending that problem and moving on to not needing them? And payroll then will be our focus of launch? I guess that's what I'll ask now.
Yeah. Yes. We expect that we estimate that it'll take about 6 months to clear the production related issues list. And we're looking hard at exactly how to do that. Once that list is cleared, then these resources would become available to assist in the payroll launch. That said, there are additional resources that we're putting on the payroll team that we'll be coming forward with, not today, but to augment the payroll team so that it can continue to work while the stabilization effort is going on, so in parallel.
All right, I see that in one of the answers you gave us about what else will be needed. And I believe you said the implementation, which implementation means payroll workforce training, right? Or workforce management. When you talk about implementation, yeah. It's like,
yes, I'm sorry. Yes, I do.
Yeah, the language there, implementation probably should be slashed payroll workforce management so that we know what we're referring to, but 2 additional contractors is what you feel will be needed. In addition to the in-for contractors that you will have additional hours increased, is that the type of support you need to get payroll launched?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. And
Yes, that's,
when do
I'm
you
sorry.
think payroll would actually be launched? I mean, we're looking at a January 2022. Does
We-
this
we have-
procurement put us behind that issues?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. We have not changed our target date. We're increasing staff right now and doing our best to try to maintain that schedule. At this point.
I'll ask one last question, if I may, Chair.
Please.
Today we are supporting the transition of funds that were not used by the 99 fund, I think we call it. Is there any
Yes, ma'am.
limitations to those hours that we can use for those people that are coming in exchange for those services that we originally thought we needed? Are we boxed? Can they come at any time we need them? Is it 40 hours a week? Is it 20 hours a week? Is it as needed? How much commitment can they give us in exchange for the services we thought they were going to do?
We have a specific set of tasks that I'm assuming in answering this question, you're probably talking about those change order 64.
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure I'm answering correctly. We have we have a specific set of tasks that in change order 64 that 4 key staff members would be involved in throughout the remainder of the year and through the payroll launch. And again, the reason for this is the change order 64 and the arrangement with Infor is something that I had briefed with the excuse me, with the Budget and Finance Committee previously. This would allow them to be involved, those 4 key members to be involved throughout the process, theoretically, but the way the contract, if we don't make the adjustment, the way the contract is written, those members could go away and come back when we're ready to launch. And what we really need is their advice and throughout the process. So it's not full-time hours, but it is involved. What we've defined it as a specific set of activities that they're going to be involved in to assist us. That said, I do call out, I think in the answers to some of the questions that you had posed or that the other council members had posed as well. We do have a need to probably increase some of those hours for some specific task related to parallel testing of payroll. And I will be coming forward with an estimate of an Infor change order to assist further in some of these areas for payroll and workforce management to provide more assurance that we're going to make our dates.
Okay. And so just to be clear, Mr. Walhop and the 3 other consultants that we hired are all, according to the answers, are all part of production support, which is what we call stabilization. And it's to address the procurement that we're very behind on and the fiscal related issues. We're not pulling payroll people to do that right now. That's just an issue that exists that we need to overcome. Is that right?
I think I would word it that way. I'd be just I just want to be clear about this. The people that were working on some of the payroll issues have been pulled into that team. We're going to replace them with some of these other staff positions that we're talking about, and we're adding Mr. Walhop to that stabilization team as well. So that's the way, that was what I was attempting to depict in the chart that I provided in the background answers.
All right, and then the ERP implementation, the 2 additional contractors and the increased hours for the Infor contractors, will that be considered non-production. So that would be a capital expense?
Those would be capital expenditures. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry to take up so much time. Thank you, Chair.
No, I want to be clear about, for everybody, on what we're trying to do here. I appreciate the opportunity to answer. Thank you.
Are there any other questions on this item from the board?
Mr. Chair, this is Trevor. I do.
Yes.
Jack, good morning. I have a couple clarification questions from your answers to the advanced questions. On the additional contractors that you believe will be needed, am I reading this that we would need three more then? Is that correct? From the 4 that we already have hired in the last 6 weeks or so?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay,
That's
so
what we're targeting.
After Tim, we will need 3 additional contractors.
Yes.
And do we have the dollar amounts for those?
I have estimates for those once I determine exactly what the source is. I would say that Infor is working to see if they can provide those resources, but I'm also looking at other sources, and which would have other rates associated with them. So once I confirm the source of those contractors, if they're all 3 Infor, then I know how to do the math. And if it's another source that may be a little cheaper, the numbers would change some. So I'll have the numbers here shortly, but I can certainly provide worst case numbers. I don't have them at my disposal right in front of me today, but I can certainly provide them and give you a worst case estimate based on the highest possible rates that we would foresee. I can do that today.
Okay, would you please, Jack? If they're outside of Infor, do you think they would more than likely be in line with the Tim's and the other 3 from the last couple border controls? I mean, somewhere in that price range? Or
well, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
If it's Infor contractors, then the rates will be higher than those that we've experienced with some of the other contractors. That's the reason I'm trying to give ourselves every chance to get the right people, but also be fiscally responsible and trying to come up with the best rate possible. So.
And I guess what I'm struggling with, Jack, is how 6 or so weeks ago, right, when we were presented with that we would need 3 contractors, right, the 3 that were approved over, I don't know, the last 6 or so weeks, 2 months. How did that grow into 4 additional contractors at north of at least $100,000 per? I mean, what changed?
Well, I think the realization that we had more continuing since that initial discussion, and a more complete list of issues from fiscal, procurement, and HR. We're as part of stabilization. I know their issues haven't been as intense, but there are things to deal with there. When we really look at the entire list that needs to be worked through, at least that we need to get through the urgent and high priority issues to be stable, it became obvious that we needed to add some additional help to get that done in a reasonable period of time. So I think getting that all together, reviewing that with executive staff has led to that conclusion.
Do you, and I know this is a tough question to answer, but by adding this consultant, Tim, and then up to 3, hopefully 3, up to 3 more, do you think that gets us back on track for meeting the January timeline for meeting our goals? And I know it's right now March, but I mean, does this get you back on track?
We certainly hope so. We're working with that schedule, as I know I've told some individual council members, but looking to, depending on how quickly we can bring these additional resources on and get them on the payroll team, it gives us the opportunity to continue to make our dates. We will probably make, as I've indicated, I think in 1 or 2 weekly reports. We're also working on reorganizing our schedule slightly differently to give ourselves time once we get these folks on board, given that they're coming in a little later in the process than we'd wanted to. We may reshuffle some things in the schedule to do user acceptance testing for workforce management earlier, and then move the parallel testing back a bit. And either way, both of those activities have to be completed, but the parallel testing requires the technical resources that we're talking about, those additional ones that we're talking about bringing on, in order to prepare for parallel testing. So we are ready essentially now for user acceptance testing for WFM. So by moving that up and parallel testing back, we may gain back some time in our schedule and try to recapture our target date properly. So we're working on all those things simultaneously at this point, but that is what we're targeting.
Jack, if we didn't have the January 2022 kind of goal here, would we still be bringing on the consultants for the ERP stabilization part?
If the question is if we weren't doing payroll, would we be bringing them on? Is that the question that you're asking, or?
Yeah, or if it was, what if it was January 23, our rollout timeframe? Would we still be bringing on these consultants?
We would still bring on some additional help for stabilization. I'm not sure it would be at the same level because, but we would still be bringing on some additional help because we need to get these issues resolved and as quickly as we can.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple questions, but a couple more, but it's for the change order for the next item.
Okay. Any final questions on this item?
If I may, Chair, just to follow up on one of Trevor's questions. So, Jack, it looks like we have hired 3. We're hiring 1 more today, and then we're planning on hiring another 3. So it looks like we're hiring 7 altogether for the stabilization effort. Do I have my math right?
Well, yes, it'll be 7 altogether, not all for the stabilization effort. Again, we're adding some of those, as I indicated in that chart that I sent over last week in answer to the questions. We'll have technical support staff that will go into the payroll and WFM teams.
Okay, because the question was, let me see. You had a list of people that you still needed in addition to what we already had. I thought you said we're a total of 2 additional contractors, 2 current contractors, 1 1099 and 1 Infor will have their contracts extended with additional hours. And when Trevor asked you, are we going to need 3 more? I thought you said yes, in addition to Mr. Walhop is. So that's where I got the 7, 3 hired, 1 today, and 3 more. So that's not quite true?
If I understand the question, I believe that's correct. So to be specific about it, the additional ones beyond what's on the table for approval right now are 1 technical resource for payroll, 1 technical resource for WFM, and an additional technical resource for ERP stabilization beyond anything that we're talking about today.
Okay.
And the way I had it on the chart was right now, I had those listed as a potential Infor requirement or resource. And that's what I was indicating. It if we do have some other sources out there that we're looking at, and if we can do that differently, we may do that, which might change the price and save us some. But either way, it's urgent that we get these. Those will be coming forth as quickly as I can put that together.
And okay, so to answer a big picture question for me, so I can keep it straight in my mind what it is that we are needing to do in the stabilization effort. We have been through a process that we have set deadlines and launched and had pro live support or post live support on all of those. Where did we fall off? We need to have this additional
Pam with some
6
new info, but I haven't.
different consultants coming in to stabilize. Why is the stabilization effort needed anyway? And I understand the procurement issues have been there a while and that needs to be resolved. But I guess I'm just asking, why is it that we've been through this process thinking that we've launched, it's successful, we're moving on to the next module, launched, we're successful, we need to have post support. Why is the stabilization effort such an issue right now?
Michelle, you need to
I'm
be.
sorry, I can barely hear. I've got a lot of background noise for some reason.
Paul's team was doing something for Ted. I just wanted to. Okay. ML might think that we can't, but I don't know.
Michelle,
Is there? Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Did you get that question, Jack?
I believe I did. There's
You're the best.
can you hear me okay? There's some other background noise, I think, in the meeting at this
So
point.
far I can, and you don't have to spend a lot of time on it. I just wanted to give some clarity as to why the stabilization project team is even needed when we've successfully launched.
Yes. Is there a number of things? I'm looking at the stabilization list right now, and I'd be more than happy to provide you details. But just in general, we at varying levels of priorities here. Not everything is in the urgent priority level, but there's a total right now of I think it's 112 specific questions or issues. Some of those are simple in training, and some of those are complex and maybe a process that we've discovered that we need to change. About 40 of those are in the urgent or high priority category. Again, I'll be more than happy to provide you a summary of this in some other form here. But of the 40 things that really are urgently need to be addressed, they are affecting either procurement or fiscal reporting. Some of those were part of audit requirements that we didn't fully anticipate having to produce quite the volume of audit and data polls for audits that we encountered going into this the first part of this year. So as we've had new staff involved, they've discovered issues with the processes that were not uncovered before. And part of the learning process was going through our first year in close, although we trial closed before in test systems as part of the acceptance to the system. There were just new things that came up with the reality of having to close the system for the first time, and then discovering that there were changes that we needed to make in that process. So it's a combination of all of those things. We know that if we do address these things and get the system stable and running smoothly, then we're putting ourselves and the county in a much better position. Also, once we get these things resolved, we can continue the rollout of some of this functionality to other boards and agencies that we've promised, specifically in the accounts payable area, for example, and in HR, the rollout of JHR functionality. So we've got to get stable before we extend this to those additional users. not sure if I answered your question correctly, but that is some of the things.
That is helpful. It's helpful. I guess I thought when we launched, we were on our way, that those 40 urgent issues, there's always going to be some issues, but you overcome them. But the 40 urgent ones that are stopping us in our tracks, that are saying we better resolve these things like procurement, or we're not going to be able to save this ERP system. It has to be stabilized. I guess I'm just disappointed that we would have 40 urgent issues and we're going back to try and when they, I mean, is that a usual ERP situation where when you put ERP and you launch and you're on your way that you have to go back and redo what the work that perhaps was missed? I guess that's what
I'm sorry.
That's what I'm struggling with, is the reason why we have to go back with such urgent issues when we thought we were on our way and ready to go with payroll.
Again, for the reasons I just mentioned, I think that's those issues need to be resolved. Part of the reason that, and I certainly can provide more information if you want to take even the discussion offline in a different group, but part of this is that we've been in the ERP group, we were struggling with being understaffed for some time, and the staff, to their credit, has worked extremely hard, lots of overtime, lots of weekends, lots of hours with a more limited staff to try to keep up with the flow of issues. And they just became, frankly, overwhelmed. We floated along on our average number of reported issues at around 30, 35, somewhere in that range for quite some time. And when we launched contract management, because of some of the issues that we had with the training for that and finding some bugs in that, the number of issues swamped the team. And that combined with the audit preparation that was not on our schedule, in at least not in the depth that we had, also swamped the team. And so we just had to take a pause here and focus on this and get those things straightened out and stabilized before we move forward. So
that's really helpful, Jack. And it's not that I certainly understand your 40 urgent and your 112 total. You don't have to give me what they are. I believe you that exists. I'm just disappointed that they do. That we have to go back and spend, $500,000 in consultants in trying to only stabilize, has nothing to do with payroll, to stabilize what's already in place. And then it sounds like it could compromise our payroll launch, yet to be seen, as successful as you are in this stabilization effort. So I won't ask any more questions. You really did help me, though, in understanding what we're approving today.
Thank you.
Okay, hearing no further questions, then I'm going to move forward.
Can I ask one more? I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, Trevor. Please go ahead.
Jack, does this allow Mike Chambers and Jesse's staff to be freed up? Will these consultants free up the stuff that those employees are working on right now to be able to do other things?
I'm not sure how to answer that. If the question is, are the fiscal employees, I know we've got Mike on the phone here, obviously, are the fiscal employees going to have to continue to be involved in testing what's those things that are being developed for stabilization? Absolutely. They are the ultimate owners of that solution. So it would not free up their involvement in that part of the stabilization effort.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I answered your question, Trevor.
No, I think I know what you're saying. I just know, Mike and Jesse's staff have been working a lot on the ERP side, and I just didn't know by bringing on these consultants, will this free up their schedules to, get back to their day jobs?
Well, a lot of what I think the answer is no, but let me explain that. What we're working on is production here, and this is their system in both cases, fiscals and HR. So what we're doing is helping the production processes, and that's what we mean by stabilization is making sure that we have the best processes in place and that we've fixed all of the issues that are urgent and high priority. So in that sense, we're going to make their processes work the way they're supposed to, or improve them. And so in that sense, it in the long term, it will make life easier for them. I don't know about free up, but it'll certainly make things run smoother. And that's the intent here.
Okay. Last question, Mr. Chairman. Jack, do you have a time frame of when you plan on bringing the 3 additional contractors? I know you have to determine if it's going to be through Infor or not, but do you know when that will be coming forward? As
fast as I possibly can. I mean, if I could identify all 3 of them and get them on and walk them onto the Board of Control, next week I would do that. So we're actively interviewing and going through people and working with Infor, and as fast as I can make that happen, I will. I would hope not more than 2 weeks. It's urgent that we get it done.
Okay. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Problem. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to approve this item. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Item approved. Next item, please.
Next item, BC 2021-125, Department of Information Technology submitting amendments to a contract with Infor Public Sector Incorporated for information technology services and solutions for the Enterprise Resource Planning System for the period October 27th, 2016 through October 26th, 2021, to extend the time period to February 11th, 2022, to modify the scope of services effective March 22nd, 2021. No additional funds required. On amendment number 63, to provide additional functional finance support services to the fiscal staff on workforce management module, and amendment number 64, to change the payment terms for the payroll and workforce management module.
So I know we've talked about this up to this point quite a bit already in this discussion, but the Amendment 63, I know there was some dialogue today. I apologize for sending an answer that might have confused everybody. Amendment 63 is repurposing hours from two previous work orders. I'm sorry, change orders that were not, the hours were not utilized on, that were part of Phase 99. And the purpose for that was both fiscal support, and there was some work done in workforce management. So both of those areas were covered in one degree or another by amendment or change order 63. Change order 64 is the change order that changes the Infor payment terms. And we've already discussed the fact that allows the Infor staff, 4 key staff members, to work across the months between now and the payroll go live.
Okay, thank you, Jack. Are there any questions from the board on this item?
Chair. Go ahead, Councilwoman. Sorry.
Just for clarity, this is a general fund reimbursement. Is that what we're looking at here? I understand there's no additional funds required, but the funding source was ERP General Fund. Is that how it originated?
I believe that would have been true. I mean, it's the funds for CO63. I'm assuming that's the one you're asking about.
Yes.
The funds for CO63 came from what used to be called, when I got here, it was in place, a so-called Phase 99 funds that were used for sort of miscellaneous change orders, for lack of a better terminology. We elected not to continue that process and to have change orders, specifically called out each time we made them. But there were some remaining funds and remaining change orders that were not executed that were originally approved under Phase 99. So all we've done is try to make better use of that money and for the purpose of supporting fiscal and some workforce management consulting.
Okay. I understand that. Thank you.
Okay.
So I have a question.
Councilman Miller.
And the
Yes, sir.
question is whether as part of this process in these change orders, is there any scope that was eliminated?
There was, I guess, the one scope item that I believe I tried to answer on that was eliminated for now was for some technical work for a GHR that we felt we could do with our own internal staff. It was part of the functionality that was already removed from scope as part of previous change order 33. And so the plan was to do that with our own internal staff anyway. And there was no reason to leave the funds allocated to Infor staff for that purpose at that point. So we elected to repurpose it to support fiscal.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Meckler?
Just to confirm, so after this change order, all the funds in Phase 99 will be depleted, right? I just want to make sure I read your question or your answers right.
That's correct. Yes, correct. And no plans to continue that process as I think we announced to the council a long time ago that we were not going to go down that road again. Every single change order needs to be approved by Border Control, regardless of the value. And Phase 99 at one point, I think, was put together to streamline that process differently, and we're not doing that. So. Okay.
And then I just have a question about how we're funding this new change order. If in-house staff could do the talent management custom forms, I think was change order 47. Why did we have that from within Infor then if in-house staff could do that?
At the time the change order was put together, I don't think we had I'm sorry, go ahead. Excuse me.
No, go ahead.
No, at the time that change order was put together, which was a long time ago, I think I don't think we had sufficient in-house capability to deal with that at all. Our intent going forward has always been to bring as much capability in-house as possible. We've been doing that either through our own 1099 direct contractors or the most desirable, of course, is with employee staff. So that combination going forward, we think we'll get this done when we elect to go ahead with that implementation.
So is the in-house staff, are those full-time county IT employees or are those the contractors that we have?
Well, when I say in-house staff, I'm referring to employees versus 1099 contractors, direct contractors. So those are the two mechanisms that we prefer to use, obviously.
Are those in-house staff, are they working on the talent management custom forms, or is that something that will come later, or when will they be working on that?
That will come later, and we have that as part of that future implementation. It is not part of a plan for this year, for example, at this point.
Would that fall under Phase 2?
It would fall under Phase 2 at some point, okay. Yes.
Thanks, Jack.
One question, Chair, if I may.
Yes, please.
Just to make sure, because we are talking about now Amendment 63 and 64. As you said earlier in the last approval of 124, these are targeted as to what's needed on special projects. So we don't really have a amount of time or obligation, or, I mean, what expectations are there over the next course of a year? Because this is a year now that we're going to be asking for these services. What point in time will they say you've exhausted our resource, or we're beyond being able to help you unless we get more funding? How much can we get for what we're amending?
Well, the time period would be all the way through what is stated here, which is, excuse me, February 11th. So that would be, but we will know, I would say this, we will know well in advance of that whether we think we have an issue or not. I can't give you the exact time period of when we would know that, but we will know well in advance of whether we think we're going to run out of our resource there or not.
Going in,
And
you
again,
don't really
I'm
know.
sorry.
You don't really know going in how much resources we have for this amendment.
We know what resources are covered by this change order for sure. We know specifically by name the 4 resources that would be involved from Infor.
I guess I'm just concerned that we draw on them and they put the brakes on while they're in the middle of perhaps getting us through these services, and say you've exhausted, the amount of time that we're willing to give over the next year because you're calling on us too much.
Yeah.
Nothing definite.
Well, there is, we do need to sit down with Infor and look at, we do have a list of specific activities that they're involved in. I guess that's my answer to how we're monitoring this with them. And we have we have their involvement tied to those activities. As we rework the schedule, if there's, that's the reason I indicated in the staffing chart that I provided that I think we're going to have some additional hours that we're going to be asking of them, and beyond what would be covered by this CO, and I've got to come up with the estimates for what that specifically is going to be. So I'm still working on trying to come up with a final budget for that at this point. But I think we're going to, I know one of the questions was, how are we going to know what they're doing, and are they in agreement? And they are in agreement that they will support us through this period, and we're very closely monitoring them. That's we have our own project manager that does nothing but work with Infor on those issues.
Okay, Jack, I appreciate the answer. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any final questions on this item? Hearing none, then I'm going to make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Item approved. Next item, please.
Next item, BC 2021-126, Agency of the Inspector General, recommending an award on requisition 4118 and enter into a contract with West Publishing Corporation, doing business as West, a Thomson Reuters business, in the amount not to exceed $15,401.94 for a sole source purchase of Clear Government Fraud Database Services for the period April 1st, 2021 through March 31st, 2024.
Mark Griffin, Agency of Inspector General. This is a 3-year contract of approximately $5,000 per year for our background check software that enables us to review contractors' backgrounds and quickly determine whether or not there are any issues that should be brought forth.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Are there any questions from the board on this item? Seeing none, then I will make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second, Nan Baker.
Seconded by Councilwoman Baker. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2021-127, Medical Examiner's Office submitting an agreement with City of Cleveland in the amount not to exceed $126,984.74 for DNA analysis of sexual assault kits in connection with the fiscal year 2017 Sexual Assault Kit Initiative Grant for the period October 1st, 2019 through September 30th, 2021.
Steve Shannon from the Medical Examiner's Office. This is a grant agreement through the City of Cleveland. It's a federal grant, and they are using it to submit sexual assault kits from their backlog for analysis. And I know we had questions about the dates. We have to follow the dates of the grant itself, but we actually didn't get anything submitted to us until last year, and then there were some brief issues with the procurement system to get this through, but it will not impact the final work.
Okay, thank you, Hugh. Any questions from the board on this item? Hearing none, then I will make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
Thank you.
Next item, BC 2021-128, Department of Public Safety and Justice Services, submitting an amendment to a contract with SAS Institute Incorporated for software license support and maintenance on the Critical Data Analysis MEMEX system for the Northeast Ohio Regional Fusion Center for the period April 1st, 2020 through March 31st, 2021, to expand the scope of services to migrate data to the Caseware software platform effective March 22nd, 2021, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $11,250.
Good morning. This is Mary Beth Vaughn with Public Safety, and also on the line is the Fusion Center Director Mike Herb in case there's any programmatic questions. As the motion says, this purpose of this amendment is simply to migrate data from the system that the Fusion Center was using to the new case management system that they're using, Caseware. This is a grant-funded purchase that has been approved by Ohio EMA.
Thank you, Mary Beth. Are there any questions from the board on this item? Seeing none, I will make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
Thank you.
Next item, BC 2021-129, Sheriff's Department, submitting an RFP exemption on requisition 4702, which will result in an award recommendation to North Coast Event Services, LLC, in the amount not to exceed $200,000 for rental of security fencing for Justice Center and Juvenile Justice Center for the period July 5th, 2020 through December 31st, 2021, and recommending the award in connection with said RFP exemption.
Hello, this is Laura Sims from the Sheriff's Office. This is a project that is joint between the Department of Public Works and the Sheriff's Office. So I'm on the phone, and I believe Matt Reimer from the Department of Public Works is on the phone as well, so that we can both talk to you about the item. So So actually, I'm going to let Matt go ahead and start because he can give you kind of the background on the item, and then I can follow up with what's going on currently. Matt?
Thank you, Laura. Good morning. Matt Reimer with the Department of Public Works. So this item is to address the fencing, barricades, and the two levels of barriers that are at the Justice Center complex now and that were previously installed and taken down at the Juvenile Justice Center over the course of 2020. As board members may recall, the Department of Public Works brought forward a mission critical time sensitive purchase in August of 2020 for the initial stand up of the barricade layer just after the May 30th civil unrest and damages to the Justice Center facility. Over the course of 2020, there were other numerous events that were very quick in developing from law enforcement decisions to logistics to support what the needed security profile upgrades were needed to be. At that point, the Department of Public Works did go out on an informal bid effort in September of 2020 to seek these services moving forward. Based on the pace of the evolutions that brought the barricades up and down and remaining up over the course of 2020, we quickly exceeded our ability to use that informal bid as the method of procurement. So in late 2020, the Sheriff's Department and Public Works Department got together and partnered on this exemption request. We've been working with the vendor closely, as well as with the law enforcement leadership on the decision-making process for what is needed for security moving forward. So this item is being presented to capture all of those decisions through 2020, as well as give flexibility for the departments to make decisions on the security layers moving forward into 2021.
Okay, and in addition, I can tell you, thanks, Matt. And in addition, I can tell you that currently we have outstanding invoices that need to get paid that this particular PO will cover, and it'll be able to give us a little bit to keep the operations going until we can determine our next course of action, because with the way things have been going for security, we may need to continue to use the fence or have it taken down and put back up again. And Public Works and I and the Sheriff's Office are looking at how do we best do that moving forward. So this contract or this purchase order will covers what Matt talked about for 2020. It will let us get the invoices paid and then figure out what our next step is going to be as we move forward to continue using or fencing or not, and then the best way to deploy that fencing moving forward, which would come in a separate PO from this for continued use. Any questions?
If I may, Laura, before a question, I just wanted to touch on two of the advanced questions. One of the advanced questions was about the the prior mission critical purchase that has been fully expended. We did confirm that as well. There was a question about permitted installation, and the Department of Public Works, working with the Sheriff's Department, has completed a separate facility hardening study for all the justice facilities at the courthouse, Justice Center, Courthouse Square, and Juvenile Justice Center. And we're in the process of briefing out the justice system stakeholders on that study now. The version that we received is dated February 24th. So look forward to talking with anyone offline about that study as well.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Thank you, Laura. Are there any questions from the board on this item?
Yes. This is Dale, and my question is for the intermediate to long term going forward, what options are you considering?
Councilman Miller, we are looking at possibly purchasing fencing ourselves to deploy whenever we need it, or to have a service contract where we can call a company and have them come and deploy it and take it down whenever we need it. There are pros and cons to both of those, and costs associated with both, and also like looking for a storage location and some other things. So we've got to get some good figures to be able to provide those. And then also we've got Matt's study that he was talking about as well for permanent installations. And so we need to consider like whatever the findings are with that to make sure that we're not conflicting with that as well.
And Councilman, part B to that question would be Public Works is looking, as Laura mentioned, at the hardening of the facilities through various options that are presented in the alternative study that we've been provided and helped create. And those deal mainly with the building perimeter and the building skin and things that we can do to improve the resiliency of the facility, in addition to the security layer that Laura's talking about with any barricades or fencing into the future.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments from the board?
I have one question, Nan Baker.
Please.
So I understand the need for the rental of the security fencing for perhaps upcoming issues that may occur and we need to be protected. But any thought to other parts of downtown that also were compromised? Any security fencing that can be put up rather quickly if needed, if we know that we have a repeat of perhaps problems happening from one place to another. What were your thoughts on securing more than just the Justice Center, the Juvenile Justice Center?
That would be something that I would have to throw to our command staff. Somebody should be on the telephone from command staff to maybe answer that. Okay, that's something that I would have to look into, Councilwoman. I don't know that that's necessarily the case. I think that the urgency and the impetus with this was because we were responding to incidents that were kind of happening as we went. As far as outside of the county buildings, I don't know that any thought has been given to that, but I can pass that along and get some answers for you on that.
All right, I would appreciate it. And I understand that's a bigger question, and perhaps the city of Cleveland needs to be involved in that, but we can't let those businesses think that we're not caring of things that may happen to them and that our police department and sheriff's department can't manage it because they don't have the rental security fencing to be able to protect them as we are for the Justice Center. Just a question. I know it's rental. I know you can put them up quickly, and just wondering if any thought was given to that.
Okay. I'll pass that on to the command staff and get you an answer.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, any final questions?
Yes, I have a final question, which is, do we currently have fencing at the Juvenile Justice Center, and have there been incidents at that location?
Council, go ahead, Laura, I'm sorry.
No, I know that the fencing has come down from the Juvenile Justice Center. It is no longer up. I don't know the date exactly that it came down, and I'm not sure if we've had any incidences since then.
To build on Laura's answer, I believe it was for the months of September through October of 2020 is when the fence at Juvenile Justice Center was in place, Councilman.
And have we had any incidents outside the Juvenile Justice Center?
Councilman, that would be something I'd have to get back to you on. I don't know.
Okay, particularly I'd like to know, like, if there's been any demonstrations where the Juvenile Justice Center has been the site or anything like that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, then I will make a motion to approve this item. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
Moving on to exemptions, item BC 2021-130, Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Children and Family Services, recommending to amend board approval number BC 2020-614, dated November 16th, 2020, which approved an alternative procurement process on requisition 4025, resulting in an award recommendation to a provider to be determined, now known as Burlington Stores Incorporated, in total amount not to exceed $165,000 for emergency clothing assistance services to change the time period from December 1st, 2020 through April 30th, 2021 to April 1st, 2021 through August 31st, 2021. No additional funds required.
Good afternoon, members of the board. Dan Humphrey, Administrator for Contracting and Department of Health and Human Services. The purpose of this item, as said, is to amend the dates on a previously approved alternative procurement. The alternative procurement is to expand the options for emergency clothing services for DCFS after JCPenney has closed some of its locations. The item is before you right now to change the dates to align with the actual award dates of the contract prior to the award being introduced next week at Board of Control. The end date has been pushed back to match up with the other contracts for this service, which are being extended through the end of August. And the start date is being moved back so that to align with the actual start of services, which will be April 1, following the award approval next week.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Are there any questions from the board on this item? Seeing none, then I will make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second, Miller.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2021-131, Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Children and Family Services, recommending an alternative procurement process which will result in payments to various providers for post-adoption special services subsidy consisting of counseling, respite, and residential treatment services for the period April 15th, 2021 through April 14th, 2024.
Good morning, or actually, good afternoon now. This is Dan Basta, Health and Human Services, on behalf of the Division of Children and Family Services. This is for a post-adoption special services subsidy. This is a program in which adoptive parents use counseling, respite, and residential treatment for those adopted children that have special needs. The state provides this program. The parents choose the treatment. Following that, we pay the various purchase orders to various vendors upon the parents choosing, and the state then reimburses. The previous approval of this item was BC 2018-255. It was for 3 years. It was very similar to this. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Is there any questions from the board on this item?
Yes, this is Dale. The funding source is listed as 70% HHS levy and 30% Title 4E, but you mentioned state reimbursement. Could you explain how the state reimbursement interacts with the funding sources?
Once we receive the invoices from the vendors that the parents have chosen, we pay the initial amount through the levy and Title 4E, after which the state reimburses.
And does the state reimburse at 100%?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions in this item? Seeing none, I will make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Lee Tucker, I believe. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Item approved. Next
Thank
item.
you.
Next item, BC 2021-132, Department of Health and Human Services, Community Initiatives Division, Office of Homeless Services, recommending to amend board approval number BC 2021-28, dated January 19th, 2021, which amended board approval number BC 2020-581, dated October 26, 2020, which approved an alternative procurement process on requisition 48737, resulting in an award recommendation to Lutheran Metropolitan Ministry in the amount not to exceed $3,958,232 for emergency shelter services for single adult men for the period January 1st, 2021 through September 3rd, 2022, to add overflow shelter services for single adults and families. No additional funds required.
Good afternoon, Dan Humphrey again for Department of Health and Human Services. The purpose of this item is to add overflow shelter services and for single adults and families to the title of the approved alternative procurement. This procurement was submitted and amended multiple times over the past 5 months. Since the beginning point, the supporting documentation and presentations had included overflow shelter services as had the RFP. However, the title of the item had omitted the overflow shelter services. We're submitting this item to amend the title in advance of the introduction of the award at tomorrow's council meeting.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Are there any questions from the board on this item? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. McAleer. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Item approved. Moving on to consent agenda.
Yes, moving on to consent item number BC 2021-133.
If you please take a moment, board members, let me know if you have any questions on any of the items. I know there was an advanced question that was answered. we need more time or are we good? All right, I'll make a motion to approve then. Today's consent agenda item number 133. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Nicole English. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Item approved. Okay, at this time, we're going to go to public comment. If there's any other public comment, feel free to speak. Okay, there's no public comment. At this time, I will make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Lee Tucker, I believe. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a great week.
Bill.